A correction to the previous video. Ratchet is a Voyager. I probably should have realized this because the box was significantly bigger than the Deluxes it was mixed in with on the shelf, and I probably should have bothered looking at my receipt at checkout, but you see, I am very stupid. So that just breezed right past my head. What also shot over me like Cliffjumper with Megatron in the dead center of my viewfinder was the fact that Sideswipe's spoiler flips upside down in robot mode. I don't think that looks particularly better, but it is yet another thing that I got wrong, and I probably should have figured that that part that's on a normal peg and port was like that for a reason. I do have two brain cells to rub together, but unfortunately that day it seems like I oiled them so they couldn't generate any heat and spark a thought. Anyways, I did in fact buy this. It's the Bludgeon and Some Guy 2-pack. But first, your likes! Please give, and maybe subscribe. Look, I'm as shocked as you are that I bothered to buy this thing. I hate this Tarn, and I don't care for the Legacy Beachcomber either, because it's just a scaled-up version of the Power of the Primes one, but worse. But this is, by far, my favorite version of Bludgeon, and the other guy, who I'm going to have to look up to remember the name of, looks to be a massive improvement as well. Ruckus. His name was Ruckus. He's like in a few issues of the comics. I will immediately forget this after the video is over. And I have to say, it's really impressive just how much more I like these things than their parent molds. That's not to say that I think these are great, but they are working much better for me. Bludgeon less so because of the damn Hot Rod shoulders. People always say that I'm too harsh on Hot Rod shoulders and that I'm way too harsh on Legacy Tarn. But no, you all aren't harsh enough. One, this is an exceptionally bad rendition of that shoulder type. It's not merely the limited range of the typical Hot Rod shoulders, they are on these extended brackets that raise his shoulder line over the top of his head. And people always try and cope and say that it's a robot so it doesn't have to be designed like a human. And point 1, subsection 1, no, that does not work like that at all. Humans' arms work the way they do because it gives us an extreme range of arm motion, protection, and versatility. This is a deviation that has no benefit and extreme detriment. His arms must crowd up to his head to work, and he has far fewer ranges on them thanks to it. Let's say that he wants to pick the fruit from a tree. Yes, I know he's a fucking robot who eats energon. He just wants something on his upper left. He can't grab it without having to walk up to it, since he can't reach up there. Or punch at something there. Or throw. He has no arm range in any of these zones. That's a huge level of restriction. And point 1, subsection 2, that doesn't change the fact that it looks fucking stupid. Sure, it's a robot, it's not confined to human anatomy, so why is it that instead of having joints with more range than one of us, it has less in ways that makes him look broken? Point 2, this is such an easy problem not to have. Just reverse which side of the shoulder has the rotation in it. It's a joint with objectively less range than a shoulder should have like this. That is also hideous, and there is no reason for it to exist here, and saying that it can work however it wants to, because it's not a human, is just trying to make up reasons why problems aren't problems, and failing to do so adequately. Anyways, rant out of the way, this works so much better than the Tarn version ever did. This mold was just never beefy enough for that character. Tarn is supposed to be kind of like what if steroids became a person. Dude has arms as thick as Grimlock and a torso that could have housed the Shatterglass Minimus Ambus. So the Legacy version is the Michael Phelps of Tarn. It's so lithe and almost skinny, which works way more for the pre-Pretender Bludgeon, who is a fast swordsman type, meaning this does the crazy cult leader scientist so much more justice than it ever did Tarn. And look, I didn't think that the colors would rip this hard, but they really do. He looks like a mixture of Iron Fist and Swamp Thing, and it kind of rocks. And I also just want to address the fact that yes, he doesn't have his back guns anymore because I took them off. They fell off any time that you thought about them on their own, and I both got sick of putting them back on and decided that they just kind of messed with his look. Then the other guy, I literally forgot his name again while writing this, is also just doing a better job than the Beachcomber. The original mold managed to just be so boring and plain. His sculpting was just not up to snuff. And while I would say that this still doesn't feel like it has enough surface detail to feel correct, it is way more than Beachcomber and trending way closer to correct. You may notice that I have removed and thrown away the back panels from his legs, and that's for a very simple reason. They didn't really look that much better, and they really got in the way all the time. This now has much deeper knees and a less cumbersome transformation. I also appreciate the fact that while this doesn't have as much surface sculpting as I think it needs, certain parts of it were picked out with some really cool paint detail, like the shock absorbers in his knees, which why are these here and not leading towards, you know, his wheels? I also have to give this thing credit. Where the Bludgeon didn't really try to upgrade the body at all, just having a new head and chest plate, this guy not only went to town on the new sculpting, but also they just really tried to make this thing a material upgrade over the original figure by doing stuff like giving him these massive leg extensions that do kind of make his thighs seem a little short, but also just give him a general embeefening in almost every dimension that pretty much puts him in an almost completely new size class compared to the original Beachcomber. Like, as much bigger as that thing was to the Power of the Primes Legends class, this is that much bigger than that. This is almost like a Voyager in comparison. But before you get too excited, this still has about the same level of complexity as a core. Gotta love how they based the paint job on a picture from the internet where they misplaced the hip stickers onto his forearms, so now he has markings there that he was never supposed to have. And you know what? The heads on both of these are pretty cool as well. I just love Bludgeon's spaghetti-sucking mouth. That is one of the coolest designs the comics ever came up with. Just the almost zombified nature of it, where he's injured and starting to decay and flat out doesn't care. Or like he did this on purpose as part of some upgrade that he felt like he wanted and didn't care what it did to him. And this ghoulish mug is just so hardcore and unique. He doesn't have a face not because he's wearing a faceplate, but because he's missing half of it and you can see the techno gore underneath. I may rail against edginess often, but sometimes it's just fucking cool. Ruckus, remembered at that time, also looks great. A pretty damn good design for a Khan's head. Unfortunately, the backpack kind of damages the look of that thanks to the immense hollowness behind it, but it's got those weird kind of knightly vibes that the latter Decepticons had. Yet another Khan Crusader here to beat down your door and evict you from life so he can pray in your house without any filthy heathens tainting their own home. Though still less hardcore than both Needlenose and his boss Bludgeon here. I would say that both of these are a huge visual improvement over the original designs. However, they are not both an upgrade in the other senses. Bludgeon is just the same figure again as a character with a pretty much equally cool design, being a zombie samurai scientist satanist. But this mold actually fits him better than the original figure, just because the body is built more like it should be, even if it's definitely trying far less hard as a retool compared to the Ruckus. Hey, I remembered his name again. Who? Yes, this is a vast upgrade in basically all ways. It's bigger, it's better looking, it's cooler, it's more posable, hell, it's even more stable. And I'm only going to go over the new accessories. If you want to see what the old ones were like, you can watch my original videos and give me that sweet, sweet 1 whole penny of ad revenue if enough of you go back for that. Bludgeon gets his sword. This also came with the Pretender version of the figure, which I did not bother to get. He doesn't have the wrists to wield this properly, so it never looks great in his hands. Guy whose name I forgot, again, has these fun little flip-out shoulder guns that you can rotate, as well as remove them and put them into his hands. Interjection from the future! I literally never attempted to put anything in his hands because I just figured they could do it. Yeah, nothing fits. There is not one accessory on a 5mm peg that I can find that goes in his fists. What the fuck is this error, Hasbro? And they're blast effect compatible. These are fun, but I feel like the hinging mechanism could be a little more satisfying in your hands. Outside that, these guys came with all the same stuff as their forefather molds. Same dealio with the posing. I have other videos if you want to see how these guys articulate. Ruckus is the only one who's different, so I will only be going over the few joints on him with new ranges. Less side to side and up and down on the head. The wrists are unencumbered by the kibble and therefore are actually useful in their rotations. Second interjection from the future! These hands have some weird fucked up quality about them where when you rotate them far enough, they just lock in and cannot be moved on their own. I need to use Bludgeon's sword since it has that thin protrusion off the bottom to get these things to unlock and go back to where they're supposed to be. What the fuck is wrong with these hands, Hasbro? I feel comfortable including this because removing the leg doors isn't a big deal thanks to the unified dark plastic not making it too ugly to do so since it all blends in better. But like this, he has extreme knees, and lastly, he has a much better ankle pivot. So once again, Ruckus is just an upgrade on the Beachcomber. Transformations still both kind of suck, and Ruckus might be even worse than normal. The Tarn mold is always going to be lame here, especially under Bludgeon. He's a parts former, and if you don't bother using the cannons on this guy because he doesn't have them normally, then either you are going to be fishing for them from your accessory drawer when you actually want to transform this guy, or you are just going to leave them off entirely, and then his basically already nothing alt mode becomes even less of something. Plus, his chest panel really should have been pinned on. That loves to pop off all the time. Honestly, if it weren't for this video, I'd never transform this thing again. It's just a drag on the figure, and considering he willingly gave up his alt mode in the comics, I'm perfectly okay with treating him as a militant monoformer. Ruckus could have so easily been better than Beachcomber. It's so close to doing that, but somehow finagling his arms into place is an even bigger pain in the ass as the geometries for getting things where they need to go are even worse here. And if that weren't horribly annoying, it is simplified to the point of being extremely boring. Flip out the heels, fold up the legs, tell the arms to go fuck themselves. That's it. You don't even do anything with the head. You can rotate it if you want to, but that's not doing much to hide it, and I didn't realize they could get even lazier with this conversion. Bludgeon's alt mode is just a millstone around this thing's neck. It's ugly even when it's on Tarn. It's not correct for Bludgeon at all. It's not a particularly threatening tank. It doesn't have Bludgeon's vibe. Hell, it can't even roll. This is one of the few figures I'm happy pretending was a red one, and one I would probably gladly replace with a more accurate red figure that probably has better shoulders. Who am I kidding? Red was the joke that kept on giving. It'd have way less articulation than this because I swear the point of it was to be so dumb that it would tear a hole in the fabric of the universe. Once again, in this mode, Ruckus, oh my god, I think I've said his name so many times at this point that it's starting to stick in my head. No! That's a brain cell that I could use to remember a particularly funny fart rather than his name. Anyways, once again, in this mode, Ruckus is a huge upgrade. The grille looks less off, the cab of the alt mode doesn't have the giant gaps in it, making it clear that it's not a real vehicle. I don't get annoyed just looking at it because you can get ripped under the buggy mode because you let your feet dangle a little too freely. Though it's still got a couple feet of car that you have to cross before you can get into the cab, and you do have to walk in front of a gun first to get there, which this gimmick still works here too, so that's more functionality than a lot of Transformers toys get. Also, it rolls great. I think most people are buying this for the Bludgeon, as he's the big-named Voyager of the box based on the deeply overrated Tarn mold that everyone wants, but honestly, you should be getting this for the Ruckus. Well, I do find the transformation on him to be even more loathsome, because it's too simple and one of the clashiest things I've ever had inflicted upon me. In all other ways, he is a massive improvement over the Beachcomber, turning that guy into an actually good figure with the vast majority of his negatives excised. And at least the Bludgeon feels like a far more appropriate choice of character for this mold than the character it was meant for. But yeah, this is a pretty good deal for a box set. I don't regret getting these guys. And before you go, let's thank a channel backer. And this time it's Charza Kitsune with G2 Dreadwing. Amazing pick. Maybe I've told this story before, but I had this, or like one of the versions of it, when I was a kid. And I may be crazy, I may be misremembering, but I swear my parents bought it for me at Home Depot. We walked in, and there was like this round table thing with a bunch of these on it, and I begged, and eventually they relented. And this thing was like one of my favorite figures for many years. And I think the wings almost immediately broke off or got lost, but this thing ruled. Such a cool toy. Just dumb, weird, overwrought 90s fun with a gigantic Black Hawk bomber that turns into a tank and combines with a jet. God, this thing was cool. The Starscream it came with was really fun too. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.